is black money?
About economic liberation and freedom.
Critical conversations to invigorate our communities through black-led CDFIs.
But most importantly, we want people to create wealth.
When we look at our communities, we still see a big disinvestment.
Going from resourceful to resourced.
CDFIs have that high touch. They understand their customers. They know how to reach out to those customers. They stay in touch with those customers.
We are trying to create job makers and not just job takers.
Yeah, I've even heard it said recently that great leaders don't lead from the top down, they lead from the bottom up because they're actually lifting everybody.
We have to do more than just being a regular lender.
Don't give me this story about if I teach you how to fish. Give me some money.
Hey, happy Giving Tuesday to everybody. Justin Minott here from the African American Alliance of CDFI CEOs, and I am here with the wonderful world changer, Mr. Michael McKinney, CEO of Piedmont Business Capital. Good to have you here, sir.
It's good to be here. Thank you for having me.
Of course. Now, we like to jump right into the deep end sometimes. And so what I want to know from you, Michael, what is something that nobody knows about you? Just a fun fact, something that you're like, people would be surprised to know.
Well, one of the things about me is that I love to cook. And so
okay.
I'm a great baker. I haven't made it to the Food Network yet, but it's something I do to kind of let the hair down and de-stress and decompress, if you will, from all of the.
Was that a hair joke, man? Where you got to talk about letting the hair down with a bald guy?
Well, listen. I don't have very much up there.
No, you rock that thing, man. Enjoy it. Enjoy that. Yeah. Now, okay. So, what types of things are you cooking?
Well,
what's your pièce de résistance? What is your go-to piece?
Well, to hear my daughter tell it is everything. And so everything I do from scratch. And so I love the Italian dishes. Obviously, I love American soul food, but I like trying different things as well, from Korean to Asian to Italian. And we're foodies in my house. And so when it comes to desserts, I believe in those French pastries and those delicious cakes and things of sort.
Oh, that's good. We got the Alliance team hopping on. What time is dinner? Now, we do have a few people that profess to be bakers and cooks at the Alliance and in our membership. So I think we might need to have an Alliance cookout because I will be judging all these things. Yeah.
Well, you know what? I'd like to sit beside you and be a judge too, so I can enjoy all of the great flavors and food without having to sweat and get it all done.
Right now, but you're talking out here, you got to be putting something out. So this is good. Now, Michael, how did you end up as the CEO of Piedmont Business Capital? Give us this making of Michael McKinney, the backstory.
It's interesting you ask. I spent about 25 years in banking, where I started out, as most bankers start out in the collection side, and then you wind up deviating to another. So for me, when I really got into banking, it was mortgage banking, and then retail banking management, and then small business lending and commercial real estate. And I did that for a long while until the real estate bubble burst back in 2008, 2009. And I said, you know what? I've had enough. I'm going back to school. I got a master's in nonprofit in addition to my master's in banking. And so the nonprofit arena just kind of led me back to this path to where the two connected. As a CDFI, you get the best world of banking, and you get the nonprofit side where you actually have an impact and making a difference in the lives of people. And to me, that was more important because on the banking side, that's what I really wanted to do. I wanted to really help people grow wealth, build wealth, open their businesses, finance their businesses. And it was important to me that I'd be able to do it for our people or those that are less fortunate in underserved communities. And so it's kind of difficult to do when you're in traditional banking because there's the parameters there. There's not much deviation. And then I stumbled upon this beautiful gem right here, Piedmont Business Capital. And I was like, wow, what a blessing. I spent all of these years doing all of these things to wind up in my dream job. And so, and that's where I am in my dream job.
I love hearing you talk about it that way. So you mentioned a bit of these pieces. Why CDFI? What is so powerful about the vehicle of a CDFI? You were saying it combines some of the best pieces of banking and best pieces of nonprofit. Talk about that a little bit more, because not every one of our listeners knows exactly what a CDFI is.
Well, with a CDFI, we actually get to target our audience. Our targeted market is the low to income small businesses, those that are in underserved community, those that are in low economic impact zones. And so it gives us the flexibility to help those that would otherwise be denied in our traditional bank setting. And so I love the fact that when someone comes to me and they go, I've got this business idea and I want to do this, and we take them through the technical assistant aspect where we work with them on putting together a business plan and a roadmap and the projections. And we say, okay, you're not application loan ready at this point, but guess what? It's not a no. We're going to get you to the application point so that we can help you establish this business, grow this business, sustain this business, so that you can then move to the traditional side of banking, where you might be able to take advantage of a lot of others ancillary products and services and rates that you won't get here. And that's the idea behind it. And to have that single focus, in my opinion, of that broad spectrum market is ideal for me, because at the end of the day, we all want to make a difference in the communities that we live in. We know that small businesses is the backbone of our economy, but we also know that many of our small minority underserved businesses have often been denied the opportunity to establish themselves and grow.
That's right. That's right.
And we have this as a tool to do that. I mean, what a blessing that is to be able to help those like that. And so to me, this will be my legacy.
Yeah. Well said. Well said. Now, why business, right? You talked about business being the backbone, right? Why business and why capital? How does that world come together? Because someone like you and the rest of the leaders of these CDFIs as Alliance members, you're brilliant. You can be doing anything, but you said, I want to lean into this space. Capital for businesses. Why?
Well, we all know that the only way that we're going to have equitable distribution and wealth building and wealth attaining opportunities is through entrepreneurship and owning our own business. And so what greater way to provide a foundation in the small business sector for our target market, to give them the chance to actually realize that wealth building for them and their families is a reality. It can happen through us. And so, and that gives anybody hope and inspires anyone to tap into their self and do that one thing they've often thought about doing, but felt like they'd be rejected or turned away and wouldn't have the opportunity to see that dream come to fruition. And so we can help make that come true. And what a powerful tool that is for us to have at our disposal. So.
That is brilliantly said. Thank you for that. I want to give a mention for everybody who's tuning in. Let us know who you are. Hop in the chat. We love having the live dialogue in the chat. Want to know who's in the digital space with us, and make sure you ask some good questions, because we have the brilliant Michael McKinney here, sitting here live. This is what an opportunity that we have. So, Michael, talk about Piedmont Business Capital. You're just up the road from me in Greensboro, North Carolina. Talk about Piedmont, what you're doing, and the focus of this organization.
Well, Piedmont Business Capital has been around for about 32 years. And when we started under the arm of the Chamber of Commerce here in Greensboro as Greensboro Venture Fund. And then in an effort to broaden our footprint, we changed our name and became the Greensboro Community Development Fund. Only to realize there was more for us to do, even greater opportunities as a CDFI, where we then separated and established ourselves as Piedmont Business Capital back in the 90s. And so we've been around in this community and other communities, having impact, making a difference in the lives of hundreds or thousands of small businesses and individuals that own those businesses. And so our focus when you look at us, there are a few CDFIs around. There are some big ones, but I think we are uniquely positioned here in Central North Carolina in the Piedmont Triad to where we can really focus on a segment of this state that is now realizing an economic boom. And so when you think about where we're positioned and what's going on with Toyota battery plant and what's going on with Boom Supersonic and all of the other ancillary businesses that are to follow, there is a wealth of opportunities for small businesses. Now, if you take it a step further and look at this new allocation of funding that's coming from our federal government, that is the Green Gas Reduction Fund. And then you start asking ourselves, how many small underserved community businesses that are in this space and taking advantage of the opportunities that's coming about with all of this happening around us, and there's not a lot of them. And so for us now, our focus is to increase that number of participation in this space, in this economic boom we're experiencing, and that's the Piedmont Triad, all the surrounding counties, as well as the state, to bring them into the fold, to take advantage of all of this funding and the opportunity to play a role in carbon emission reduction, energy cost reduction, greenhouse gas emission, and the funding that's available to establish their businesses and grow their businesses. It's just a wealth of opportunities. We have to fill probably somewhere between 28 and 30,000 new jobs within the next 2 years because of the Toyota battery plant for electric vehicles, because of Boom Supersonic, because of all of the other ancillary businesses. The other component of that is, where's the housing? We don't really have the housing to support that either. So as a CDFI, we get to play a role in that as well, in community development and community revitalization, looking at some of the older structures that are sitting there and revitalizing them into something that's livable and attractive and sustainable. And so that's the other component, sustainable housing, revitalization of neighborhoods that have been long overlooked and forgotten about. Now is the time for us to do that. And we're excited about the future and where we're headed.
Yes. Now, how do you strategically help increase participation in some of these emerging opportunities? Let's speak specifically about Greenhouse Gas Reduction Fund and some of the other initiatives around climate and climate jobs and pieces like that. How does Piedmont Business Capital get to play a role in bringing people into that fold, or helping businesses that maybe are doing some other work tap into more of the green economy piece? Because that is a massive piece of the next decade at least, right? So what does that look like practically, boots on the ground? Because I think there are a lot of listeners trying to figure this piece out, right? We know our communities should be participating. How do we do that in real life?
You know, there's a wealth of information all around this space, and so much so that it's overwhelming. I think we have to break it down to layman's terms, and then have a educational campaign to create awareness across our communities so that small businesses understand the wealth of opportunities in this space that's available for them. And there's so many, I think when you look at our bureaucracies and our agencies and you look at CDFIs, I think we're all trying to figure out how to navigate this and present it in a fashion so that small businesses can take advantage of this, right? So, you know, there's so many different categories around the green gas reduction, energy costs. You know, there's solar panel or solar farms and electric vehicle chargers and HVAC. And so then we have to do our research too and understand, are there certifications that our small businesses need to be aware of, and where do they get those certifications, and how long do they take? And once they receive these certifications, who are they recognized by, and who can give them? And so there's a lot of questions out there. So we're in January, we will be hosting a green energy educational summit to bring about awareness for our small businesses so that we can begin to get the word out and try to deploy some of these funds to help the businesses that are there and businesses that want to get there. So.
Let me know when that is, because I'll be up the road. That's a little hop, skip, and a jump. I'm in Durham, so we can.
Well, it is coming in January. I will tell you that, and we haven't. We're working on the exact date, but we're going to do that in partnership with a number of other entities because we want to make sure that we're impactful and effective in our messaging, so that we can get the right information out there that will be able to lead and guide a lot of the small business owners on what the next steps are.
Yeah. Well said. Now, talk about the real estate front now. What do you see as somebody who has been in real estate for a long time and you're still operating in that space, commercial development, residential development? What does the future look like? Because right now, and this is, really me very curious about this, there's a lot of moving parts and it doesn't quite feel like it's making sense. We talked about the real estate bubble before. Like, where are we? Where are we right now in this history?
Well, I think the biggest challenge that most of us face in the real estate industry is that there's a lack of inventory. And because there's a lack or not enough inventory, I mean, we're down 3 million houses across the country. Here in Greensboro alone, we're some 3,000 plus. And so
that's significant.
It is significant. And when you look at all the jobs and the things that are coming, how do we address that? So Piedmont Business Capital, not only are we a CDFI, but we are also a CDE, Certified Development Entity, which allows us under the U.S. Treasury to ascertain and sell new market tax credits. And so through tax credit, we're able to get private funding. And with the private funding, we can fund developers and businesses that can target underserved communities to bring about revitalization and sustainable housing and those things that have been missing for some time. Because when you are all out of land and you look at the landscape of your city, then it's clear that if there's a segment of your city that has been neglected and overlooked, that has to be a focus. And generally, it's our communities, our underserved communities. And so there's no reason why that they can't walk out their front door and look around and feel proud about where they are and the community they live in and what it looks like and the availability of quality, safe housing and up-to-date infrastructure and the retail services and all of those things that so many other can enjoy on the other side of town, if you will.
I'd love to get your thoughts on this as well. So there are a lot of commercial buildings that are underutilized. The future of work and being in the office has really transformed and was accelerated by the pandemic and all these other things. Is there an opportunity, or what would it look like to convert some of these commercial properties to residential and actually having more housing in some of these underused buildings? This curiosity of mine.
Well, you know what? I absolutely agree with you. When I look around, there are a lot of buildings that are in use or were in use or not being used at all that I think are prime targets for some reinvention into some affordable or sustainable housing. And I want to make sure I keep saying sustainable, because oftentimes when we say affordable housing, people think that we're talking cheap housing. And so I'd like to say there's a difference. I used to represent the apartment association years ago, and we want to make sure that we distinguish the difference between affordable housing or low income housing. And so it's all about housing affordability. And to me, affordability is in the hand of the beholder, how much you can afford based on your job. So I think it's more important that we talk about sustainable housing and how do we create a wealth of inventory or improve the inventory for sustainable housing. And to me, abandoned buildings, not used buildings, once used buildings, all those are prime targets for sustainable housing. And you know what? And the investment, when you look at where we are now, are well worth the renovations in order to make that happen. Because since COVID, what we found now with some of the newer generations is they don't want to come into the office. They want to work from home. I know my daughter, the ones like that, I'm looking to work from home. And many corporations are struggling and getting their employees back into the office. In fact, I know a couple now that have put in their retirement and said, I don't want to go to a building. I went, they made me come back in. This is a bank. And I was one of the few people in this huge concrete building. I don't want to be there. So,
right. But I feel like people are trying to get use out of these spaces and figure out, but I mean, the future, it's just going to look differently. You don't need as much footprint for businesses to do what you need to do, but we need places to live, especially as people are working from home more. You want a home you can work from. So that's kind of becoming some of these makeshift offices. Yeah. Okay. Well, thanks for that.
And you know, I want to add one other thing to that too, is because when you look at these nice office buildings, there's a mortgage usually on those buildings.
Right.
And the owner or the real estate investment group that bought into that building have to meet that monthly obligation. If there are no tenants in there, or they're having to pay and they're not realizing the return on the investment, then the smart thing to do is to convert it into something that will give you a return so that you can meet that mortgage payment and be able to put some reserve aside for maintenance and what have you, and profitability.
I think it makes a lot of sense. What are some of the barriers to this though, right? Because converting some of these pieces to new uses, right? There's some zoning issues and things like that. How do you overcome some of the bureaucracy and other pieces that you need to actually move some projects forward?
Well, I think what we found in local municipality is that they recognize the problem we have with the shortage of inventory and housing. And in order to be able to really capitalize on the economic growth opportunities that are surrounding us and others, that there has to be some relaxing of regulations and some concessions and others in order to meet the housing demand that's clearly here. I've had many conversations with elected officials and leaders, and they've indicated, you know, we're willing to relax some things here. And even in our local area, one thing that we thought we'd never see was accessory dwellings in the backyard. Guess what? They're there now. Yes, you can put an accessory dwelling there for in-law. You can rent it. Whatever we need to do to create the housing that we need. So now they understand we are in a crisis. We can't be picky in a crisis.
Yeah, well said. I think that's brilliant. So we have a question from Rajesh Patel asking about, is your program limited to a certain type of business? So talk about the types of businesses that Piedmont specializes in serving and wants to serve. What does that look like?
So when you start putting different businesses and categories, no, there's no particular type of business from that perspective. However, there is an income limit that we look at, and those are low to moderate incomes based on the area medium income of our area. And so, and we have to follow in those parameters because our funders, if it's the U.S. Treasury or if it's a local municipality or foundation, they are targeting certain audience from the small business perspective, and the parameters of the funding that we offer, regardless of what the nature of the industry is, must fall within the income limits parameters.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. All right. So talk about now what's coming next for Piedmont Business Capital. What do you see on the horizon? What are you envisioning and dreaming up as you think about the next few years?
Oh, wow. You know, I've got big dreams. I've always been a big dreamer. And I tell you, we are in the process of ascertaining our CDC, our Certified Development Company for SBA. We want to be able to offer SBA 504 loans, which I think will allow us to have to solicit to greater small business audiences all across the state. We want to make sure that we're providing as much funding, access to funding to small businesses as we can. And so we're looking to grow our footprint, number one. But we don't want to just grow our footprint. We also want to increase our impact. And so when I look right around me immediately in our surrounding areas, there are a number of communities that are on our radar to help with revitalization. And so that's a big deal for us. And we're moving in that direction because it's needed. And as the president and CEO of Piedmont Business Capital, that's one of my top priorities, to make sure that we're meeting the needs of our community. And no matter what they are, whether they're housing, whether it's small businesses, whether it's infrastructure, whether it's community healthcare, we have a role to play. And what we've discovered is that our constituencies and our citizens in our communities look to us to help lead in that arena. Our elected officials look to us to help lead in that arena. And we want to make sure we're living up to those expectations.
Yes. One thing I love most about CDFIs is how community driven and really needs informed CDFIs are. And I want to know, as a leader, you see this massive need. How do you balance meeting the needs and staying focused on the certain things that you need to do to move that needle? Because the need is so great. How do you balance that as a big-hearted leader?
Well, I think you have to prioritize the immediate need. While there's so many, I think you can only tackle 3 or 4 at one time. And I think you have to do that in consultation and collaboration with your board, with community leaders, and with elected officials. And through a coalition of those leaders, you come to an agreement or consensus about what our citizens deem as the most urgent needs in their community, and make sure that we're all in agreement on that, and then putting together the strategy to address those. While we may not be able to address them all at the same time, we can certainly address the top 3 or 4 and make an impact on them, and then move the ones below that up the ladder as we fulfill those top 3 or 4 targeted goals.
Yeah, that's very practical. Thank you. Thank you. What does Black liberation mean to you?
Being able to do what you want to do, how you want to do it, without worrying about the implications in your wallet.
I like it. All right. So we're talking about capitalization.
We're talking about financial freedom.
Yeah. What does financial freedom really look like in practice, right? We talk about these big concepts. What does that look like, boots on the ground?
I think when you think about financial freedom and you think about small businesses, low to moderate income businesses, Black businesses, brown businesses, there have been many times, even today, that the owners of those businesses have ideas or and want to do certain things or take certain actions, but do not have the ability to do so, because it would have to take from Peter to give to Paul, if you will, kind of understanding. And so you want to be able to drive your business, move it in the direction you want to, take care of your family, and do all of those things without worrying about a negative implication on the backside and some other part of your landscape. And so to me, that's what it looks like. Boots on the ground. It's equity distribution. You don't have to be rich, but you want to be able to make decisions that you know are going to be good for you, right for your business and your family, and not have to worry about a negative implication because you don't have the resources to help sustain in those transitions. We have some brilliant small business owners and operators, and they know how to run a business. They know how to make do when don't wants to prevail. But in many cases,
that's good.
They don't have the resources, and so they're stagnated. They're stuck, and I think it's our job to help get them out of that rut so that they can move to the next level.
I want to talk about one thing for the entrepreneur listeners. We have a lot of folks that tune in who are entrepreneurs, business owners. A lot of folks, especially in the Black community that I talk to, entrepreneurs, are concerned about debt capital, right? Debt has, it's a bad thing, or it's, you're not supposed to be in debt or any of these things. When does debt capital make more sense? Because a lot of times people are talking about, okay, venture capital, which has its pros and has its cons. They're talking about, friends and family raising. They're talking about grants. But, this idea of generative debt is kind of, there's a cognitive dissonance sometimes for a lot of the entrepreneurs that I talk to. So thoughts on that?
Well, I'm a firm believer in other people's money.
Mm-hmm.
I always have been. And I've always believed that if I've got to use somebody's money to grow my business, to build my business, I'd rather use yours than use mine.
I agree.
And here's the thing. It's okay to borrow money to grow your business, to build your business, as long as you have enough revenue coming in to cover that debt and to be able to put something to the side in the event of a hard time. If you're not in that position, then you ought to, think twice about putting yourself in debt when it's not there. But here's what I've discovered in my short tenure here is that in many cases, we lend money to small businesses for whatever reason, to expand, to grow, for operating capital, for inventory, no matter what. And then many of our small businesses will run into an issue. And rather than come back to the source where you got your funding, many of them will go in the opposite direction and get in a bind. When really, this is where the technical assistant to me comes in really and is most valuable, to figure out what's going on in your business that's causing you to struggle. Maybe we just need to revisit your budget. Maybe we need to cut expenses so that you can meet your financial obligation. Whatever it is, let's figure it out together so that we can overcome that objective, that obstacle, so that you can continue to operate a business successfully and then even sustain it and grow it. But when you get nervous and you turn and run and go, I'm throwing my hands up, I don't know what to do, that's when failure come in. But listen, the reason why so many businesses exist and succeed today is it's okay to ask for help when you're in a bind and say, listen, I'm trying to figure this thing out. Go to the experts, seek their guidance, let them help or let us help you figure that thing out so that you can continue to do the thing you love. And that is run your business, feed your family, build wealth, because that's why we're here, to help give you that. And then the beautiful thing about CDFIs, we can say, you know what, we have the flexibility. We lent you the money. Yeah, we expect you to pay us, but let's reevaluate your loan. Maybe we need to change the terms so that it's more manageable now. We have that flexibility.
What a powerful vehicle. I love what you're doing, and I love why you're doing it. Michael, thank you so much for taking some time today. Any last closing thoughts or something that you're thinking about cooking in the next little bit?
Listen, there's no telling. My wife and my daughter are constantly calling me at work and go, "What's for dinner?" I was like, "Okay, well, what are you guys cooking?" Well, what are you cooking? So I have enjoyed this conversation. It has been enjoyable for me, and I appreciate the opportunity to talk about Piedmont Business Capital and our vision and our mission and the work that we're doing in our community. I say keep an eye on Piedmont Business Capital. We're on the move. We're making things happen. Yep. And we're going to continue to do that because we have a community, not just here, but across the state, communities that we need to serve, and small businesses we need to help grow. And that's what we're all about. So.
Yes. Well, the Alliance is in your corner. I would ask listeners as well, amplify this message. Please share this interview with your networks so that more folks can know what Michael and the team are up to at Piedmont Business Capital. And for all of you that tuned in, thank you so much for making the time. You could have been anywhere else, but you chose to be here. Michael, thank you again for your heart, for your mind, and for all the work that you're doing.
Thank you.
All right. Bye for now. Is Black Money.
About economic liberation and freedom.
critical conversations to invigorate our communities through Black-led CDFIs.
But most importantly, we want people to create wealth.
When we look at our communities, we still see a big disinvestment.
Going from resourceful to resourced.
CDFIs have that high touch. They understand their customers. They know how to reach out to those customers. They stay in touch with those customers.
We are trying to create job makers and not just job takers.
Yeah, I've even heard it said recently that great leaders don't lead from the top down, they lead from the bottom up because they're actually lifting everybody.
We have to do more than just being a regular lender.
Don't give me this story about if I teach you